Friends, in just a moment, we are going to begin the service for Mrs. Lillian Jacoby. Just a gentle reminder before we begin, if we could please take a moment to turn our phones off, to make sure they're silent. Officiating our service today is Rabbi Tzvi Zimmerman.
We're here to pay our last respects to a remarkable woman who lived a tremendous life of bracha, Mrs. Lillian Jacoby. She's survived by her daughter, Mrs. Bryna Grimblatt, many grandchildren, and many great-grandchildren. We'll be having 3 maspidim, and I'll say something at the end. For right now, we'll say 2 a kapitel Tehillim, and we'll say Eshes Chayil. You can say it along with me if you'd like. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsor, binos desha yarbitzeni, al memenuchos yinahaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni, b'magalei tzedek leman shmo. Gam ki elech begates almoves, lo yiraro ki atoy madi, shivtecho mishantecho hema yinachamuni, taroch lefonai shochan neged sororoi, dishanta vashem en roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayoy, v'shavti beveis Adonai laorech yomim. Eshes chayil miimtza v'rochok mipninim michra, batach bach lev balach v'shalo lo yachzor, Gamalasu tov lo ra kol yemei chayeha, dorashat semro fishtim atas bechefetz kapeha, hoisa kaniosocha mimerchak tavilachmach, batakim ba'od laila v'tita in terech levesa v'choklin arosea, zama sadevet yikacheu mipri chapea nata akarem, chagra ba'oz masnea v'ta'ametz zoroseha, tu'amikitov sachra lo yichbe b'layla nera, yadea shilcha v'akisher v'chapea tam chufalech, Kappa porceliani v'yadea shilcha le'evyon l'sirim levesa mishaleg hichovesa lavushanim marvadim as-salah sheish v'argam levusha noda v'sharim bala v'shivta al im ziknei aretz sodin as-savatim kor v'chagor nasa leknani oz v'hadr levusha v'tislak liom acharon pia pascha b'chacham v'soras chesed al shonach l'sofia lichus beisa v'lechem atzul sol sochel kamo v'neve yashrua ba'allah v'yhallah rabos banus asochayo v'at alis al kulana Sheker achein behevel ayofi isha yiras Adonai hisi salol tinu loch mi priyadeh v'halua b'asharim masel. The first masbi will be Harab Binyamin Newman.
We're here to show our kavod achrein to an isha chashuva ma'id, Mrs. Jacoby Aleh Shalom Yeta Leah Bas Elio Shehalcha Le'lama, that left the world and went on to a better place. She was beloved by everyone, by her friends, community members, her mishpacha, her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And the source of this ava that they showed her began from her. Like the pasuk says in Mishlei, Kemayim aponim laponim, keleva adam la adam. The same way when you look in a body of water, it reflects your own image, so too does one heart reflect the image of the other person's heart. Everyone loved her because she loved everyone. No exceptions. She had this positive look at everything. And now we have the void of not having her with us here. Hashem nosan, Hashem lokach, Yishem Hashem mevayrach. We accept it. But on the other hand, although there's a big void, we have her legacy, a legacy of dignity, a legacy of humility, a legacy of dedication to Torah v'Avodah. She, together with her late husband, Mr. Jacoby Olav Shalom, didn't have the background that their own children had. and yet they were able to come to an understanding of their dedication to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and their emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They faced challenges during their lifetime, and it was always with an emunah shalema, accepting it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that what Hashem Yisbarach wants is best. Something that we have to take on with us as we move forward. This legacy of dedication and this concept of tzaddik b'emunah yichya, to live with emunah. The pasuk says, "Mitzah chen v'sechel tov bein Elokim v'adam." A pasuk in Mishlei, which just shows us that a person has to try to endear themselves to Einei Elokim v'adam, to Hashem Yisbarach and to people. But the mission of us seems to make it like two independent things that are dependent on each other. Kol she'ruach habriyas noicha emenu, ruach hamakam noicha emenu. Kol she'ein ruach habriyas noicha emenu, ein ruach hamakam noicha emenu. If somebody finds favor in the eyes of people, you can be assured that they find favor in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If a person doesn't find favor in the eyes of people, then they did not find favor in the eyes of Hashem Yisbarach. The simple meaning is the meaning that I explained it with, which is that a person should endear themselves to people, and then when you endear yourself to people, then Hashem Yisbarach will also be endeared by you. But the Chayvus Havavah says a different shot. It says that it's not a siman, it's not a siba, it's a siman. It's not a cause for the Hashem Yisbarach to like you, but it's a siman that Hashem likes you. If you want to know who's beloved by Hashem, and we all want to be beloved by Hashem, look and see my Yomer Abriyos. What do people say? Is Ruach Abriyos Neicha Emenu? So then you know that Hashem loves him as well. Mrs. Jacoby Aleh Shalom was an individual that lived both pshatim of the Mishnah. She endeared herself to people, and we know that she endeared herself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this lesson of her life and what she represented, that legacy is what we have to take forward. And with that, it will be a Zichra Baruch. Her memory will be a blessing for all of us. Tainishmas Eitzur B'tzur Chaim.
Her son-in-law, Dr. David Greenblatt.
It's hard to know where to start to describe a life of 96 years. I'll start at the beginning. My mother-in-law was born in Gary, Indiana. It's not going to be an hour talk, don't worry. My mother-in-law was born in Gary, Indiana at the height of the Depression in 1929. Her family, her parents were in Gary because that's where they lived on the north side of Chicago, but their business was in Gary, Indiana. And she was born while they were manning a store in Gary, Indiana, and her mother was working in the store the day my mother-in-law was born. And one of the kids reminded me during the Second World War, when she was 15, she worked in a candy factory because all the workers had gone, I don't know all the details, but all the workers had gone to help in the war effort, and so she was working in a candy factory, she told the kids. Fast forward, though, many years, she went on to be a very devoted family member. As her family moved out to California, she followed suit and moved along with them. And at a point in their life, my father-in-law and mother-in-law decided that California was not for them. They just did not like the lifestyle in California, and they moved back they moved to Cleveland, Ohio, because they had a business opportunity there. They didn't know where to move in Cleveland. They decided to move to a neighborhood called Euclid, Ohio, which bordered Wickliffe, Ohio, that some of you have heard of. They moved into an apartment building, and lo and behold, that was the apartment building that was the home of many of the Jungelite. One of the Jungelite befriended them, and he's now the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Brooklyn, Reb Shlomo Mendel. And my father-in-law approached him and said, could you teach my son? My son is 7 years old. I would like him to learn, 6 years old. I'd like him to learn some Aleph Beis and learn Hebrew. And a lifelong friendship developed at that point. My mother-in-law, this was my father-in-law, my mother-in-law was raised in a family that her father was a president of an Orthodox shul, had a traditional background in that way, but had very little formal education, as was the case in those days. But she followed right along. And she became such a Ezer Kenegdo that they were really, this was a team effort that they both worked very hard together to develop children that were machshiv learning, that were yirei shamayim, shomrei mitzvos, and this was their goal. My mother-in-law became friendly with all the Telz Rebbitzins. Rebbitzin Stein called my mother-in-law my mother-in-law called her every Friday afternoon. And I remember when we first got engaged, I come in the house and I hear my mother-in-law chattering in Yiddish on the phone, and I say, who is she talking to? And that's Rebbitzin Stein, Reb Chaim Stein's wife. So the connection was very deep. Her father was from a town right outside Vilna. So she had that Litvische mentality, which was a dignity, a kind of a royalty that really, was with her entire life. I often said to Bryna that your mother knows black and white. There's never any gray. It's either right or it's wrong. And it never is like, oh, you could do this, you could do that. It had to be either right or wrong. And if it wasn't right, it was wrong. We heard somebody speak, we had a guest speaker in Shul this Shabbos who spoke about the Avos and Imahos, and he was saying that they balanced each other, that Sarah was the one that with the story of Yishmael, of course, with Sarah, and that she was more the din, and Avram was the chesed, and then Yitzchak was the din, and then we had Rivka, who was the chesed, who was the ish chesed, and that's why Eliezer was looking for someone to balance Yitzchak's din, to be somebody of chesed, and that's what he was looking for. So my mother-in-law was, balanced my father-in-law in a lot of ways. But Rivka really wasn't just chesed. There was something we know in this week's parasha about Rivka that's a little different, because we know that when it came to the brachos, Rivka's the one that kind of switched the brachos so that Yaakov would get the bracha. So it wasn't just that she had the midas hachesed, but she had that woman's intuition, that woman's sense, that woman's understanding of what was necessary and right. And my mother-in-law was the epitome of that. With the children, with the grandchildren, she always kind of knew what was the proper and right thing to do. And it's really a lesson that she taught all of us, that she taught Bryna, she taught my brother-in-law, Lava Shalom, and she taught all of the grandchildren. I will also say that my mother-in-law took her biggest, and the grandchildren know, her biggest nachas was the children and grandchildren. There was nothing, everything was really about them, and that was her biggest nachas, was to see them grow up the right way, I would have to say, but grow up and become a source of nachas to the whole family. So everything was always, and even though she had that kind of, we'll call it, that sense of straightness, she was always a lot of fun with the children and grandchildren. She always enjoyed making it fun with them, and we will miss that dearly. I wanted to just give thanks to her caregivers that are here, Sharon and Miriam, who took wonderful care of her for these past 5 years, and thank all of you. She should be Melis Yosher for all of the family, for my wife, for all of the family, and for all of Klal Yisrael.
Her oldest grandson-in-law, Mr. Eitan Zafran.
I think my father-in-law touched on a lot of the points about Bubs that I think really stick out to us as the grandchildren. But I want to speak a little bit about our relationship with her and also my children's relationship with her. So I think, like a lot of these part shows, like we just mentioned, are related to the Imahos and kind of discussing how we got to where we got to as a nation. And I think as far as this family is concerned, I think she very much was the matriarch of the family, and she had not only in the decisions that she made that led everyone to where they're living their lives today, but also in the way that she carried herself, and her strong conviction for everything that she was dealing with in her life. She was, anyone who knew her, she was not a pushover. She very much shared her opinion, and she was very strong about all the things that she believed in. One of my early introductions to Bubs, I'll call her because that's how I know her. And my early introduction in the family was kind of on the other side of her mama bear mentality as a defender of Sarla and all the grandchildren. And it came in response to the bracelet that I bought Sarla, or my parents bought Sarla for our engagement. And needless to say, she was very unimpressed with the size of the diamonds. And I think being in the jewelry business probably gave her a different perspective. But when Sarla showed it to her, I think her response was, "Oh, you're joking. Where is it?" So, that just shows how much she really was in her kids' and grandkids' corner. No one could mess with them. It didn't matter even if you were in the family. By marriage, you had to make sure that you were taking care of her own. And I think I appreciated that, and I tried very hard, and I hope I accomplished what she expected of me in terms of taking care of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. All of my kids had a very, very special relationship with her. She was extremely playful with them. She was the youngest 90-plus-year-old that I've had the pleasure of interacting with, and I interact with a lot of them. But she was always extremely sharp. She would kibitz with the kids, and my kids really just adored her and had an immense love for her. So she had a incredible way of getting down to everybody's level, no matter what age or what they were into. And Sarla still speaks very fondly of her memories as a young kid sitting without a seatbelt in the middle seat of her pickup truck all the way from Chicago down to Cleveland. And she really was a second mother to her. She confided in her. She even spent, I think, a whole year living in her house during construction, which was a lot of fun. And I know that was a big, helped them build a very strong bond and relationship. But again, all of my experiences, I think, as by osmosis, were the same, and I felt that same love and affection from her always. Like my father-in-law said, in terms of the relationship with her and Zeza, she was what you would define as an Ezer Kenegdo. She definitely stood by his side. She schlepped pianos in and out of people's houses together with him. She was his business partner. She was his advisor. She whipped him into shape, I think, quite a bit in instances, and gave him the clear direction, which I think was what we look for in a partner. She was the true essence of that and represented it, I think, extremely well. And it's something that I got to observe even in the later years. They worked their life around their family. So, whatever it was that was going on, whether it was in line with what their plans were or whatnot, they would cater to the family. So much so that they picked up and moved as close, I think, as humanly possible, right, to my in-laws. They picked up their life from Cleveland, and the soonest they could, in terms of, retirement and business-wise, they took the opportunity to live as close to their family as possible. Just another, indication of how much family was important to them. Just speaking to her commitment to Yiddishkeit, and how incredible it was to see that she, along with Zeza, had really just turned their life, upside down for the sake of having a stronger connection to Yiddishkeit. It speaks a little bit to a vart that I heard last week, or that I read last week. In the Parsha, talks about Avram's nisyonos, and that, as we know, each one of the nisyonos, from 1 to 10, each one was getting significantly more difficult, or supposed to. So they went in that order. So you would assume that the most difficult of the nisyonos was the Akeda, right? It's hard to imagine something more difficult than giving up your only son. But Mefarshim explained that was actually the 9th nisayon, and the 10th nisayon, which was supposed to be the hardest nisayon, was having to deal with the burial of Sarah, and to negotiate with Ephron and deal with all that stress, and paying for an exorbitant amount of money to get Sarah buried, which is an unusual thing. How is it possible that that's a harder, more difficult nisayon than having to give up potentially your only son? So the pshat that I saw was that, in life, we work very, very hard to get through particular challenges, or to achieve a certain accomplishment. And the natural reaction after, successfully going through that, is to take a step back, or take a seat and relax and say, look what I did, look what I accomplished. I could kind of take it easy now, or, retire more or less. But the lesson here is that when it comes to your connection to Hashem, to Yiddishkeit, there's no such thing as retirement. There's no such thing as sitting back and relaxing. And I thought that was very much apropos to how Bubs lived her life along with Zeza, that there was no relaxing in their connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even later in life, together, they found that connection, and made tremendous sacrifice in order to get there. And even later in life, always continuing to strive for growth. So I think that that's something that she very much lived by and was an example of. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm sure I missed a lot. But we have a lot of gratitude and akar satov to my in-laws for giving up so much over the last few years, and taking care of her, and having her live under your roof with incredible amount of love and care, and to the caregivers as well that spend so much time with her. We're appreciative of the fact that these last years were filled with family, filled with love, and surrounded by the people that she cared so much about. And that should be a big zechus for you and your family, and our family by extension. And she should be a Me'il Yosher for all of us. And we ask Mechila if we were never didn't give her the proper respect. But her neshama shev and aliyah, and it should all be a Me'il Yosher for the family.
I unfortunately did not know Mrs. Jacoby as well as I wanted to. I came in to the family when she was already older, but I had one conversation with her. And the one conversation was when I went to the Grimblatt's house, and she was still speaking without any issues. And I went in and I said, "It's amazing that you're living with your daughter." And she said, "Of course, this is my family. I want to be with my family all the time." I think her exact words were, "I love being with my family all the time." And that was amazing. I just had a conversation with somebody who's unfortunately going through something that Lo Aleinu shouldn't be with, but he was having an issue, and my response to him is that you have to realize what you have. Take what you have in your family and appreciate it. And when you appreciate it more and more and more, you'll see that everything will get better. His response to me was, I thought the most important thing in the world is ruchnius, is spirituality, is working on one's spirituality and connection to God. And it took me a little bit. I thought for a little bit before I responded to him. But I said back to him, I think you're missing the boat. If a person's spirituality is taking them away from their family and who they are, then that's not real spirituality. If a person's family allows them to become closer to God, then you've really found your way to spirituality. Then you know that your connection to God is something real. It is amazing to see the Grimblatt family together. It's amazing to see them interact with one another. It's amazing to see how they talk to each other, how they deal with each other. I come from a family of 7 boys. There are no girls, Baruch Hashem. So we definitely have our interactions that are one against the other, and that's perfectly fine. We have very, very unique conversations. To watch the Grimblatt family discuss things with one another is really remarkable. And that is a testament to what Dr. and Mrs. Grimblatt were able to make in their home, and a very big testament to what Mrs. Jacoby was able to instill within them. To live with them is just a bracha that we should all have, to be with family until the end of our lives. We would be remiss in not mentioning, I think Dr. Grimblatt mentioned, both of the helpers that Mrs. Jacoby had at the end of her life, and thank you, but especially so to Mrs. Grimblatt. Your constant devotion and dedication and care to your mother was something that would make anyone jealous of that mitzvah of kibbud av v'em. And even though that mitzvah is no longer here, I am without a question, not one to talk about this, but there is no question that when we speak of Melitze Yosher and Shemayim, your mother is going to be a tremendous Melitz Yosher for you, for your family, and hopefully for Klal Yisrael. Yizrach Baruch Teinav Shetzura B'tzura Eden. If everyone can please rise for Kel Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei Ashchina B'Mailos Kedoshim Utorim Kezohar Rakia Mazirim Es Nishmas Yetalea Bas Eliyahu Shochal Olamah Bavur Shanachnu Mispalim Baras Koros Nishmasa Began Eden Teiminu Chasa Lachein Bala Rachamim Asura B'Seiser Knafav Lo'olamim Yitzor B'Tzor Chaim Es Nishmasa Adonai Unachlasa B'Senoach B'Shalom Amishkava V'Nomar Amen. Please be seated.
For a moment. Friends, this concludes our service here at the chapel. The interment will take place tomorrow at Eretz Chaim, approximately 2.5 hours after the family lands. For Shiva information, please stay tuned to the website. That information will be forthcoming. We'll post it as soon as we have it. For those who wish to join the family procession to the airport, we'll be forming just outside the funeral and parking lot. Please make sure your bright lights and hazard lights are on at all times. For additional measure of safety, please make sure you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker, which can be placed on the inside portion of your vehicle, as well as a magnetic flag on the rooftop portion of your vehicle. Please drive as close to the car in front of you as safety permits, as we want to avoid any large gaps in the procession, especially as we pass through intersections. At this time, if I could ask the pallbearers to please step forward as we escort the casket from the chapel. If everyone could please rise at this time.